Welcome everybody to another episode. Today we have in online with us Ludo from Train the Money Brain, who is based in Japan, but I believe from France. And we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, which is related to money management, and all the rest of it that surrounds money. And it's a topic that Ludo and I had a chat about before, and I said that's a fascinating way to look at money and energy, and that's what Ludo is going to expand on because he comes from a traditional finance background, but then he's taken another turn when it comes to money and to wealth and to assets and all the rest of it. And I'm very excited to hear about what he has to say about this topic. So, Ludo, first of all, welcome.
Thank you so much, Russian.
So you're from France?
Yes, I am. I'm French. Yes, I'm.
Okay, and you've been living in Japan now for how long?
Well, I just realized next year is going to be my 20 year in Japan.
Wow,
Yeah.
2 decades. That's a long time. Okay, so
Yes,
you're
yes, yes.
yeah, and you're based in Tokyo, right?
Yes, I am. Yes, yes.
Why did you choose Tokyo?
Oh, initially, actually, I was more in the Kansai area near living in Kobe when I first lived in Japan. But for the world of finance, everything available is more in Tokyo. It's really the center for Japan. So and then once I've settled here, I really like the city. So
Yeah, Tokyo is an amazing city. I agree. I absolutely fell in love with it. But what led you to Japan out of France?
oh, my wife.
Okay.
We were not married at the time, but she's the reason why I visited Japan as a tourist before, but the reason why I really decided to stay, for a while, which turned out to be a very long while, was because it was getting serious between between her and myself. So
Okay.
she's the reason. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Ludo, tell me, I found you online on LinkedIn, and you commented on some of my posts, and we resonated a little bit on some topics, and I know you've got a copy of my book, which you're reading as well. Uh,
Yes.
and and so, I generally talk about coaching, spirituality, Zen, and all the rest of it, and you come from a finance background, yet we relate somehow. So, tell me a little bit about your journey from finance to, or your background to where you are now. Just a bit of a brief background, because I've heard it and I'd love people to hear about it.
Yes. So the important part, I would say, the starting point was my entire career was in finance and a bit of entrepreneurship, but the core part was as a professional investor, and this lasted over a decade, and that included the 2008 crisis, and so this is where I learned most of what I know about investing. And then at some point, the kind of opportunity that was available to me started to become less attractive. And I started to question a lot of what I was doing. Basically, I had let's say, a rough period about, okay, what am I doing? And so I worked with a coach, actually, for a while. And then one day, I had some kind of epiphany. uh, a lot of questions that I was trying to answer came together, and I realized that everything I had learned as a professional investor, I could find a way to transmit it experientially. And this was coaching. So, of course, the coaching I did was nothing to do with finance or investing or whatever, right? But I realized, oh, this thing, we can do the same. And I never heard of that before, so I had to create everything from scratch. And so this is how I became what I call sometimes investing coach, So it's money, but it's focused on investing. But then from there, a lot of other things come together. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me more about how is that different to another investment consultant manager? How are
Yes,
you
yes,
different to somebody
yes,
who talks about? So for instance, if I've got $10,000 and I said, okay, this I want to retire with this. I need a strategy for you to invest this money so that I would make really good money in the future. How would you approach this, and how is your approach different from the mainstream?
yes. So the normal way, the traditional way is to maybe to ask someone to take care of it for you, and there are millions of people who do that, and it's the traditional way. My approach is completely different. What I do is I train you to take care of it. And the thing is, even if you decide to hire someone, a fund manager or with more or less a discretion, the kind of decision that you have to make, how do you choose that person and how long for what, how? Actually, all these are investment decisions. So the framework and the process I transmit is universal in the sense that it helps anyone to make direct investment if they want to, or through other people. But now what happens is that as you go through the process to the program, the training, you realize that you're actually better off doing it what I call the DIY way, do it yourself way, as opposed to doing a lot of investigative work about the people who's going to manage it for you. Because ultimately, the work that you should do to evaluate those people is not simpler or is not less work than doing something that can be relatively simple yourself. Right?
Right,
So
right.
that's how I completely differ. And this comes from, in my professional investing experience, I have a lot of what I've done, not only, but a lot of what I've done was evaluating fund managers. So I've done that very, very deeply, and I've seen the difficulty and the limits. So I don't say people should not, hire fund manager or people, but when you go through the process, you realize, well, you're actually better off doing it yourself, and because now you know how to do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Okay, that's really important. So Ludo, let me ask you a question. It's a diversion, but I remember us mentioning this in some way. Um, why is it that so many people, through their retirement, the pension fund, whatever else that they've gotten now as a lump sum, superannuation, whatever, I notice a lot of them don't know what to do with it, and the ones that do end up messing it up, right? Which I think is a very vital service that you provide, and that's why we have fund managers and people like that. And that's the risk, you see. So that's where I need you to expand on, because if I have to make that decision, I think behind the decision about becoming my own fund manager is another creeping thing in the psychology of the person that somehow doesn't know how to invest, doesn't know the investment landscape, doesn't know himself or herself either. Could you tell me more about that?
yes, yes, and that's the key, because the way we approach this is that we think it's very intellectual, very conceptual, very analytical, and there is, of course, some theory, some things to know, and you can have some relatively base level, and you could also spend all your life on a very, very narrow thing, and it can be fascinating, right? So there's no limit. But what is really not understood by most people is that it's not so much about the concept, the analytics, and the theory. It's the process. It's what you do to make your decisions over time, and how you manage what you have done over time. So the process is kind of the link between all your decisions over time. And it's something it's not a one-time thing. So the lump sum concept, it's like, okay, I have this money and I put it somewhere and then I don't care about it. And hopefully I do it right and then I'm happy. It doesn't work that way. It's always a series of decisions, always. It can be long or short, but it's always a series of decisions. So the process ties all this together. That's the big thing. And this is experiential. And this is why this is why coaching, it's coaching, because, and another way I describe it, to transmit this is to use games. So I create games. And what kind of game? It's not video games or it's not Monopoly. It's like one-to-one experience games. And through this game, I play with my client this game. I set the scene. There are, a setting, and then we go through some preparation. Then we have to make decisions. Something happens, a bit like a movie, but just the two of us. And through this, we bring. So my client brings his experience, her experience, and I bring my experience, and all that together, we build that over time. And then at the end, you know what to do. But it takes time, of course. It's a program.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of funds, like when you're working for someone, they don't give you the money. They say we'll invest it for you because they seem to know better, and I see value in that, because if I didn't come to a course or didn't know about I think I don't think we have an understanding of money. It's a weird kind of thing to say, but it's that we in our brains we have one concept, and then the way we apply it is a different concept. Like I was just telling a client of mine, he was saying that when I'll make sure that I'll take the subway instead of taking a taxi cab, but then I'll go to a restaurant and instead of me ordering water, I'll order the most expensive wine when I didn't need to. And that was one example. And so we'll go save $20 here, and then we'll spend $400 there. I remember recently I was booking a flight, and I was booking a flight, and it was the difference was $400, and I went for the cheaper flight, and they said, look, if you take the one that's a $400 discount, what's going to happen is if you want to change your flight, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I said, well, that's fine. I don't think I'm going to need to change it. But in the back of my mind, I knew maybe I need to change the flight. So guess what happened? I got there and I needed to change the flight. And they quoted me and I got furious and I got so angry. I said, what's wrong with these airlines and all the rest of it? I said, well, you book this different kind of, and it's not my fault. It's the agency. Can't you do this? And now I've created all these things from a simple thing where if I had to spend $400, whatever the amount was, I wouldn't have to spend $3,000 to go back home. I'm using examples in dollars term. What is going on there in our heads? Like, do we even understand money?
Yeah, so money is very. I think it's very hard. There are many dimensions. There is the money we have in our pocket, in our bank account, and in less liquid forms in our investments or pension or whatever. Then there is the concept of money, more like macroeconomic. And these days we hear about banks having a run and stuff like that. Then there's the crypto. So it's actually very it's very hard to even define what money is, and from different standpoints. So it's completely normal that we get confused because it's a very difficult thing to grasp, I think. So from the perspective of investing, that's why I use very concrete things, and I always make analogies, and I use objects. Like, for instance, one object that is kind of the core little tool that I use to help people deal with all these things is the dice. So like a dice like this, right? Because the dice is a very simple. Everybody knows, we've played games of dice or whatever, right? So everybody knows it's very concrete. And very intuitively we can feel this is a very simple model of risk, of different things that can happen, right?
Mm.
And so I use that to make it very concrete. Look, for instance, the example you just described, you could use the dice. You said, okay, I take this ticket or that ticket, right? And if you just want to spend 5 more minutes looking at the scenarios of your tickets so that you decide I'm going to take the more expensive ones, maybe or not, you can take these dice and assign scenarios to each of the faces and then think through. Of course, six is a bit artificial, but it doesn't matter. You can just, it's a game, right? And so thinking scenarios and then, you know, using the dice as a model is very powerful because it's concrete, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I do that for many other things. And I have, a great set of tools, various tools
Okay.
to make it concrete, actually. And then with the games, it's lived.
Hmm. So, what are some of the outcomes or benefits from working with you that your clients have experienced?
Well, let me give you with a metaphor that I like to use. Everybody knows how to ride a bicycle, right? So you want to go somewhere with your bicycle. What you do, you just you grab the handle, you sit on the saddle, and you push a pedal and you go. You don't think, right? It's very simple, right? And you learn that as a kid. I don't know if you remember, but before you learned, it was very complicated,
Yeah.
right? It was, how am I going to do that? I'm going to fall, and now people do it better than when I learned it. So what I do is the equivalent, so that when you have to make a decision, any decision, and you are confronted with a situation where you have to choose, just like your airline, but for investing, for instance, you just know what to do, how to make your decision like this. I'm not saying it takes 1 second, but it's just become intuitive. What you have a clarity about what is risk and what is safe, which most people get confused actually.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
more tricky than every client I work with, I realize, because for me it's become so obvious, and I realize, oh my goodness, this is much more difficult. Like you just mentioned earlier, you mentioned I'm using dollars. Just that. What is my main currency? What is safe for me? It's
Hmm.
quite difficult actually for some people, including me. I have two currencies, for instance. I have euros and I have yen, right? It makes it a mess. Someone who has just dollars, it's like fantastic, right? So all this, it becomes, you know, and at the end of the program, of course, you don't know everything about finance, that all the traders and the fund managers, but you just know what to do. If you need something, you know where to go. You also know how much you need to know and how much you need to just give up. I will not know that. I don't have time to know that, and I'm okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'm fine. You develop this experiential uh, feeling, is a bit, you know
Knowing,
confidence,
maybe. Yeah.
clarity, and confidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, really, really useful. So I would say it's the process is what you're offering rather than the outcome. So it's the process of evaluating and making a decision, which I think is the most important thing, because when there's so many variables on the table, you end up getting overwhelmed. Like if I'm trying to decide on investing in, say I've got 10% and I want to invest it in high risk areas like say crypto, or maybe some of the tech stocks as well. To decide now, okay, you just open up crypto on its own. You've got the blockchain technology, you got the what do they call it, DeFi. You've got all this gaming. So now, and what I end up doing is just saying, okay, well, someone else can do it for me because I don't know the process on how to evaluate. And I
Yes.
think what's really important, what you said, is that how to give up the fact that you're not going to know enough about that, and then
Yes.
focus on the most important things. So how do you apply that to what I'm mentioning about crypto, for instance, when it seems so, or crypto or some tech stocks? Should I go Apple, Tesla, that
Yeah,
type of thing? Because and then you don't know how the future is going to go. Because Facebook, for instance, now has reached a peak, and then they tried to go into the metaverse, and it seems to have backfired a bit as well. Even though people, so then
yeah,
how do you choose your five top tech stocks and your five top
yeah,
cryptos? What is the process?
yeah. So there is I would say a central tool that I can describe, very quickly. And of course, it's like the bicycle. The key is to practice it, but it's what I call the 3D box. So basically, the idea is that you want to make a decision that is a kind present to your future self, right? You don't want to let all the burden of the mess that may happen to your future self down the road. And so what you do is that you do everything you can to pre-decide even the exit of your investment. And so there is a framework for that. And so it's a box with 3 dimensions. And the first dimension is time, right? The second dimension is price. And the third dimension is a bit of a play of word. It's not really a number. It's what I call the why. It's the rationale, right? And so before you make your decision, you go through the 3 dimension and you document them and you clarify them in such a way that once it's done, then you decide. You decide based on what you know, and by noting also what you don't know, by noting also how you feel emotionally, because people don't, in finance we don't talk about emotion. Emotion is something we should suppress, we should deny. It doesn't exist, right? We're supposed to be robots rationalizing robots, right? But this is obviously completely wrong. So actually, I'm doing the opposite. If you're excited or if you feel about some part, you just write it down. Or if you're angry, for instance, many people are angry about the banks. That's why they want to invest in crypto, right? For instance, or I am angry sometimes about what people say about certain things, and this is kind of a motivation too. I need to know and I need to write it down. So all this, it's documented. And then the way to document, of course, it's something, it's a bit of it's a whole session in itself, right? But once you do that and you start practicing it, and then it just becomes like the bicycle. You document, and the important thing is that you have a time limit and you have price limits that you decide from the start. And also the rationale is very clear. It can be more or less detailed, but it's clear and it's documented. And if you make a decision, okay, I will buy this, Amazon or Facebook or whatever, then later on, if you're out of the box, which means if you reach your price limits, either up or down, or if you reach the deadline, or if you realize that the rationale that was the reason for doing it turned out to be wrong, that can happen, then by default, you exit. And it's important to say by default, in the sense that it's not that you have to exit, it's that mentally you should at least very, very seriously consider exiting and re-entering if you want. Right? So it's this kind of process, right? It's really a process to help you make the decision as best as you can without leaving too many things, and documenting.
Yeah, I actually think your process is brilliant, because what happens is when you're trying to make a decision, emotions come to play, and
Yeah,
most of the times when you trust your emotions, you end up making the wrong decision. I think that what you're doing is really, really powerful. You're acknowledging rather than denying your emotions. You're saying, look, I have a feeling I should invest in this, and I have a feeling I should do this, then you're not denying it and making yourself robotic. So, because ultimately, whether you, I've heard this from statisticians, when you actually make the final decision after you've gathered all the facts, it's actually based on gut, based on intuition. So you
Always,
bring in, yeah, so
always.
you bring in all the facts and you say, right, Amazon or Google, and you do all your research, and now you're sitting with, you've eliminated all the possible scenarios that you haven't considered, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, right? And then you're sitting there with the final thing going, Amazon or Google, when they're both the same and have been weighted the same, then you trust your heart or trust your gut and say, "Well, you know what, I just like Amazon." Does that make sense?
It's absolutely, because ultimately, we any decision is first and foremost, any action is first and foremost emotional, and then we rationalize it. It's
Right.
always like this. We don't like to say it, but that's the reality, right? So by putting everything down and acknowledging what we don't know, um, and it's okay. And the thing is, the other important thing that I didn't mention. So I mentioned the three dimension, but there is another very important part, which is how much, and it can be anything, and it has a huge impact, of because if you invest just $1 in Facebook, it's not the same if you invest 50% of your portfolio, right? So and this process, this part, how much, is also something that you decide during this process, and that you document, and why. And so this is all this, and one thing that is very useful with this how much thing is, if you don't know enough but you still feel it's a good, it's something good, you feel, you can always reduce the size to the level that, despite all what you don't know, you can still do it. And it can be small, it's okay. We don't have to put, one of the most important principle for me, what I call the golden rule of investing, is we don't have to invest, and we don't have to invest any amount. It's a kind of equanimity concept. At the time of decision, you need to feel that you're at peace. You've done everything, and you know that you don't know everything, and you have the size that is right for you. And there is no way you can regret.
Hmm.
That's the key.
Yeah, that's a big one, huh? That's
Big.
a big one. Yeah, that's so big because I know, because when I've been investing, it's almost like the time has come and I've got to make a decision, and there's nobody in the room other than me deciding
Exactly.
whether I buy or not. Yet I'm putting pressure on myself, and so I can really relate to what you're saying. You're like,
Yes.
no, then don't do it. If you have any
Yes.
doubt or regret, you don't have to. And I think that's really, the psychology behind this is
Yes.
really, really fascinating.
Yeah. So this is really important. And I started this Train Money Brain out of anger, actually.
Okay, that's good.
I
That's a
was
good motivation.
angry at the way, the financial industry is full of conflicts of interest. And so
Yeah.
my business model is, I don't take money and manage it. I don't sell anything, any product, whatever. I will never do that. I really dislike it. I just train. And the other thing is, because of that, if at the end of the program you decide, oh, actually, I'm going to just invest this little much, just this, and I'm fine with that, I say, congratulations, that's fantastic. I don't know, I don't want you to invest more, actually. I want you to
Hmm.
invest just the right amount in aggregate, but also for each individual position, just the right amount that is right for you. And thanks to the program, you will know what it is, because that's the hard part. It's very hard to know, actually, what is right for you before knowing what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's so powerful because a lot of people that offer training courses or education on investment have on the back end a particular reason for you to buy into their product or
Yeah,
invest X amount into their
yeah,
product. And then they may say, well, we'll offer you and they'll say, we offer it for free. Training's for free, right? Because if something's for free, you're the product, right? So they'll be like, don't worry, come for the training seminar. We'll talk about investing in, bonds, stocks, and, whatever else. And then you walk away going, You're already asking the question what I should invest in. You're not thinking, why are these guys flying people from wherever to do a course, book a hotel venue, if none of these
Yeah,
products are something that they're going to benefit from? That's the one thing. And also, you don't have the social, you don't have the responsibility now, because the moment, because I was to do some investing as well, right, for people, the moment I take your money, even if I'm getting 1%, I can't sleep at night, because when you're a fund and you see so many funds going broke, but I've got your money, even though I'm making 1%, there's a responsibility on me. And
yeah,
your reputation can easily be swayed. So people said to me, I was doing really well at one stage with crypto, and people said, "Oh, we'll give you money, and you can invest it for us." And they weren't offering 1%; they're offering me 15 to 20%, which is insane. I said, I can't do it. I just cannot have that on me, because I know sometimes I make such a wrong, volatile decision. But with crypto, the more unstable you are and the more risky you are. Of course, I played with small position sizes. I think that's something that you really need to hit home. I didn't realize it, because in the beginning, I'd say, right, 50% on this, 20% on this. And because of that one hit, which was guaranteed, right? And it didn't happen. I lost everything, and that's the mind saying to you. And then I was sitting there like angry, like you were angry, going, "How could I lose the 50% on the most solid of all the coins, for instance?" But that was my fatal mistake. Is that I relied so much on, of course, historical and all the rest of it, but there is no 100% certainty in the markets, right? What do you say about that?
yeah. So everything that we have to have some rationale and some analysis and some kind of prediction, but we need to frame them in a way that is just part of the process. So in what one way I like to describe it is, I don't like faith based investing. I like process based investing. So
Mm.
the I or there is the concept of attachment to your decision or to your ideas, right? So if you can be as detached as possible, not too much, because otherwise you cannot make any decision, right? So you need to have some motivation, and then, but not too much, right? So this is the so you all this that we hear and that we analyze and that we the history, of course this is real and we should use it, but then we have a process that's itself that if things go wrong, you already know what you have to do and when and how, because you already decided at the outset. So you don't leave all the burden of the decision to exit whenever something happens that you preset your decision basically, and then what
Amazing. Mm,
happens, right?
mm.
And the other thing is, you talked about, the other thing is to be very clear about what is risky and what is not. Sometimes in crypto with the stable coins especially, right? This is where the concept of safe is a bit tricky sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, so this is also part of the, it's a bit different aspect, but it's central. And actually I spent a lot of time with Mike, much more than I thought initially, about this, because for me it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
you know
It's not.
uh,
I learned it. Yeah, I learned it the
and
hard
then
way.
you can learn the hard way, or you can learn in a way that is not too painful, right?
Right, because at the end of the day, it could be your retirement package that you decide to put one way or the other.
Yeah.
And there's also, we have this idea, if I give this to a fund manager, I'm safe. But I don't think that's entirely the case either.
No, it's not, because how do you know? It's very the problem with the fund manager, there is a fundamental opacity about his decision process.
Yeah.
So he's going to tell you a story, and you can see a track record, but the track record, I always say, track record is just 1/3 of what you need to know. You
Mm,
need to know why he did that, and then what happened. And so
mm,
if you start looking at all the, not only the data points, every month or every day or whatever, over 10 years, which is quite long, but if you look at all the decision or the major decision, it's a lot of work actually. So you're better off, doing, something simpler that you fully understand. Because that's the other thing. Fund managers, it depends. Some of them are relatively simple, they pick stocks and, and then it works, it doesn't work, right? Some are more complex. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's very difficult to know which way to act and what to do. And I think one of the biggest things that you provide, if I could say, is that instead of you going to find out these lessons yourself, rather get someone to guide you who has made those mistakes before, and also someone who comes from the industry, because you know what happens behind the scenes in the
Yes,
advice. And it's very hypocritical, right? Because they're selling you and they're not telling you that. For me, I find that as well. Like, I find that with the medical community sometimes as well, where you
yes,
go in and you're like, doc, but I don't need an antibiotic. I'm fine. And the doctor says, they can't tell you that. They'd love to tell you that, but you could sue them, because if it's not true or whatever. And so, they sometimes, like, so I've got this guy who's a homeopath, and of course the medical fraternity think of them as quacks generally, right? But my homeopath, who is a medical doctor, would say, Rashad, you don't have anything to worry about. That there's nothing to worry about. Now go
yeah,
away and your body will take care of it, because the body is this incredible resource to be able to do that. And that's, I think, the confidence in knowing when to act and how to act is what you're going to give them, because they're going to be
exactly,
in a role play. You're playing games with them as if though they've been investment managers for over a period
Ex-
of time, which is really
exactly,
powerful.
exactly. And this thing about, once you have this process and all these tools and frameworks that you've practiced, you read everything that you read before differently.
Yeah.
You see the doctor and he's bullshitting you. The other example I use is, it happened to me, with my car. I was at the gas station in, nearby, and they say, oh, we can check your tires. The tires were 6 months old, and he was trying to sell me a new set of tires.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my, I was almost, I wanted to yell at him, but then I said, well, he's just doing his job, he's just an employee, so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna.
So the person you should be yelling at is not him, but you. And in the investment point of view, you can't later
Exactly,
on say, later on, well, look, he made me make the wrong decision. He said what he said, but it was your choice at the end of the day. So of course he's got a job to do. He gets extra commission to promote, Fund Y. Of course he's going to go promote that, but you can't later on get angry at him, because at the end of the day, it's your money that's gone, right?
I completely agree. That's the way I love the way you put it, because ultimately you're in charge, and it's for you or for your family, right?
Right, right.
It's
Yeah,
not
and
it's not
sometimes it's somebody else's. Yeah.
nobody else, and so that the difference between a fund manager, um, you know there is another concept that I agree that is very counterintuitive for most people. That, I ask people, don't you think you have an edge over professional investors? And actually, we do have an edge, as weekend investors like you and me, like non fund managers. We have an edge because we don't have to report to anyone. We can
Mm,
invest any little we want. We don't have, these clients that, are going to be, we have to think what are going to think, whatever.
right.
It's just our money, right? So in a way, the freedom makes it harder. But once you have the framework and the process and the mindset, then you have a power, what I call the edge over professionals, because I've
Mm,
seen it. I've invested in some fund managers, and they made mistakes because they had to invest. They had to, and then, oh, they had this money, and they could say, okay, I'm going to return the money because actually what I wanted to do, I can't do it actually. Instead of that, they did something else, right? They
mm,
had to invest in their, whereas we don't have to. We don't. It's an edge. It's a freedom,
mm, mm,
and this
mm.
is this is very important. So in a way, we are better than fund managers. We
Right,
have
right.
this edge that once you know to do it, it's very, very powerful. It's very important.
Hmm. Ludo, we mentioned last time about money being energy or something to that caliber. You remember we had that discussion. What was that about exactly? You know, how is money perceived in that way differently? How have you perceived money differently?
Money as energy.
Hmm.
Mm,
Does money flow to where a certain energy is? Is money an emotion?
so the way I um, describe money is more like a mirror.
Hmm.
It's a mirror of ourselves, but it's a distorting mirror, right? Because ultimately, when you make when you buy something, a product or services, or when you make an investment, ultimately what you are after is not is what's behind all this, is the experience, the feeling, the emotion, right? Ultimately, it's always come back to that. But what happens is that, so money is just an intermediary, right? But what happens is that we look at the mirror and we start loving the mirror itself. So it becomes opaque in a way. So
Hmm.
so money becomes, so in a way that's maybe what we meant by energy. We get attracted to it. It becomes an end in itself. Whereas it's not an end in itself. It's the ultimate means of other means. With
Hmm.
money is the thing with which you can get other things, right? It doesn't have a function by itself. You cannot, right? You can
So
buy a car and use the car, right? And then you
so
get,
it's a tool. It's a tool.
it's the ultimate tool to acquire other tools. And ultimately, what you want is feelings, emotions, and
Hmm.
and experiences maybe, right? So,
Well,
and
happiness. I would say
yes,
happiness would be the feeling at the top of the pyramid, right?
yes,
You wouldn't do something because you want pain. The only
exactly.
emotion you'd want is that, will this finally make me happy? When you get the house, when you get more money, when you get that. So you're actually chasing after happiness, thinking that money is going to make you happy. But no, money is a means to
Yeah,
potentially being happy or potentially being sad.
yeah. But the thing, because it's so powerful to acquire so many different things, that we get stuck to it, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, I realized recently, it's related to the paradox of choice.
Mm.
With money, you have so many things you can do with it. So you just grab on it, you just cling to it, right? And you accumulate it, forgetting that ultimately it's not, it's not what you really want, right? Of course, it's, there is a intertemporal concept, right? You need money for later, but we get too attached to it. So um, and so I think that's the difficulty. So if you remember that it's just a tool, then you have a much uh, a healthier relationship, uh, as well for consumption as for investment, is it for both.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
So, Lord, how does someone engage with you? How long are your sessions?
Yeah.
How do you run them? What's the process?
Yeah. So I have essentially, in a standard, as a standard matter, I have two types of programs. I have the full program. I call it 10 years in 10 days. Right. This is kind of flagship program, but normally I start with what I call the mini program. And the mini program, it's very easy. It's available on my website. It's 3 sessions, and it starts with a game, the main game, the first game that I ever put together. And this game is about calibrating the main level. The first level of the game is calibrating how much risk is what for you. And we do it in the game, we do it at the aggregate level. But then once you've done the game, you can apply it to an individual decision, or a part of your portfolio, an allocation. I want, like the tech composition, for instance. It's very flexible, right? So, and then you have two more sessions to kind of digest it, because it takes, a bit of time to do, and then we need to it needs to filter through your mind, and then we can apply it to some concrete examples. So you have two more sessions. So it's three sessions, and this is very easy to book, and I do it either face to face or I can do it online. When it's face to face, I use a VR headset for a deeper experience. But
Okay.
I started it actually. When I started it, it was the beginning of COVID, so I did it online. That was the original version was online.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful, Ludo. It's really interesting to hear about your process and what you do. And yeah, so is there anything else you want to add on about your process, your courses, and then let us know how to get in touch with you as well.
Yes. So what I can add is that, of course, this is all new, and it's a bit like trying to explain to someone what is an ice cream when they never had it. So to make it easier, I offer a free 1 hour session to anyone who wants you know to get to know better what happens, and with their own questions, and so they can just reach out to me, and uh, this can be the first step too.
Okay, so then you'll explain everything that they need to know as
Yeah,
well.
and then it will be more, tailored to. So we've talked, about it in a bit general term, but also a bit with respect to what you talked about from your experience, right? And
Yeah.
for someone else, it's going to be something else. So it's the thing is, it's all about personalization, personal experience.
Mm. Okay.
Everyone is so different. It's actually it's actually marvelous. I'm still amazed at how every single person brings something different to this.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I'll put the links to your website and to your LinkedIn profile and other information as well, so they can get in touch with you. So, Lito, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to speak to you.
Well, I'm thanking you.